The world today is far from peaceful. According to statistics, besides intense military conflicts in Ukraine, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, India-Pakistan tensions, and Myanmar, over 30 countries worldwide are engaged in warfare, accounting for 1/5 of the total number of nations. Against this backdrop of multiple global geopolitical risks, the two largest economies, China and the United States, are seeking to repair their relations by resuming comprehensive dialogues and consultations on economic, financial, and military fronts. Of particular note is the high-level military control and non-proliferation consultations between China and the US, where both sides will engage in dialogue and exchanges on a wide range of issues, including compliance with international arms control treaties and non-proliferation efforts. The peace talks between China and the US can significantly reduce global geopolitical risks and can be seen as a blessing in a tumultuous global era. The US seeks to stabilize China to avoid multi-front conflicts, while China aims to constrain the US to prevent further escalation of regional conflicts, thereby making its own contribution to world peace. Although the level of this military dialogue is not high, it marks the beginning of silent military talks between China and the US in recent years. The topic of arms control negotiations, especially, is sensitive and of great concern. Arms control negotiations focus not on the control of conventional weapons but primarily on the reduction of strategic nuclear weapons. It is not about commonplace weapons like aircraft, cannons, tanks, machine guns, or ammunition. The emphasis lies on strategic missiles, nuclear weapons, and the militarization of space highly destructive weapons. In this video, we will discuss and report on the China-US arms control consultations, addressing the following points. 1. Why is China engaging in talks and consultations with the United States? 2. What is the purpose of the US engaging in military control consultations with China? There is no doubt that avoiding miscalculations between China and the United States is an important prerequisite for resolving regional conflict risks. In other words, resuming military exchanges between China and the US can likely prevent the powder keg of the Taiwan Strait from being ignited in the short term. For the US, which is facing multiple proxy wars, this undoubtedly avoids a major trouble. The current reality is that stabilizing China allows the US to avoid the dilemma of fighting on multiple fronts. China's willingness to engage in dialogue ensures the continuation of a peaceful and stable development environment. However, the US's long-term strategic competition with China will not change. Once the US achieves its short-term tactical objectives, it will return to the long-term direction of strategic competition. This is something that China needs to remain vigilant about. So why is China engaging in talks with the US? The decision is influenced by several factors. First, pursuit of peace. China is a peace-loving country and has always advocated for resolving military conflicts in different regions around the world through persuasion and dialogue. Whether it is the Russia-Ukraine war or the Israel-Palestine conflict, China has always stood on the side of peace, justice, and international law. China is willing to contribute to international peace and stability rather than being a disruptor or a creator of risks. Therefore, engaging in talks with the US is, in fact, an attempt to persuade and constrain the US from adding fuel to regional conflicts. China also refrains from seizing the opportunity to resolve the Taiwan issue. Of course, China hopes that the US can set aside its butcher's knife and bring a ray of hope for regional peace. Second, economic interdependence. The focus of China-US talks lies in the economic and financial aspects. Economic and trade cooperation is the ballast stone of China-US relations and the area where it is easiest to achieve results. After several high-ranking US officials visited China, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently visited the US and held meetings with President Biden and Secretary of State Blinken. Vice Premier He Lifeng, the Chinese leader in charge of economic and trade issues, is also scheduled to visit the US soon. These are all signals of the warming of China-US economic and trade relations. Even though it may be challenging to reach an agreement on high-tech and rare metal resources, where the US is unlikely to concede in the field of technology, and China is unlikely to relax export controls on rare metals, there is still much scope for cooperation in the economic and trade field. For example, Chinese manufactured affordable consumer goods can support the US in controlling inflation, while the US can expand its exports to China in consumer electronics and agriculture. On November 7, Reuters reported, citing traders' information, that China purchased the largest single-day amount of U.S. soybeans in at least 3 months. This brought a glimmer of hope to the most valuable U.S. agricultural export. It is reported that China purchased about 10 ships of soybeans, approximately 600,000 tons, which will be shipped from export terminals along the Gulf of Mexico and the Northwest Pacific coast from December to March next year. Currently, a U.S. Department of Agriculture delegation is also participating in the 6th China International Import Expo, marking the first official participation by the U.S. federal government in 6 years. This undoubtedly sends a positive signal for agricultural and food trade between China and the U.S. Third, risk assessment. The visits of Vice Premier Hou Lifeng and Foreign Minister Wang Yi to the U.S. paved the way for a meeting between the leaders of China and the U.S. At the current time window, promoting a meeting between the leaders of China and the U.S. holds significant importance. The 2024 U.S. presidential election is about to begin, and whether Biden will be re-elected, Trump will return to office, or a dark horse will emerge, this is a critical period for policy observation in the U.S. How to handle the China-U.S. relationship is one of the essential campaign agendas for candidates. Engaging with the U.S. at this time not only demonstrates China's broad-mindedness and goodwill but also allows for observation of the U.S. political situation and prepares for handling the bilateral relationship. Moreover, China is also convening important conferences. From the perspective of opening up to the outside world and strategic timing, it is necessary to take the pulse and set the tone for the relationship with the U.S. in advance. Therefore, engaging in talks with the U.S. at this moment can be considered as an important research opportunity. Only by continuing mutual contact and understanding can both sides adjust and prepare for effective strategies. Overall, China's decision to engage in talks with the United States reflects its commitment to peace, recognition of economic interdependence, and the need to assess and manage risks in the bilateral relationship. So, what is the purpose of the United States engaging in military negotiations with China at this time? First, it aims to assess China's nuclear weapons capabilities. During the process of military negotiations, participating parties disclose some relevant data on nuclear weapons, and this is precisely the core objective of the United States. The status of nuclear weapons capabilities is a national secret, and the United States wants to engage in military negotiations with China to take the opportunity to understand China's nuclear strength. China should be cautious about confidentiality during the negotiation process. It should be noted that the former Soviet Union's nuclear warheads were significantly reduced because it believed in the United States' nuclear disarmament, ultimately leading to a substantial disparity with the United States' nuclear capabilities and the loss of its status as a superpower. Currently, the United States and Russia pose the greatest nuclear threats in the world. The United States has the highest number of nuclear weapons globally, and Russia, in response to Western sanctions during the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, announced its withdrawal from the New START treaty. This is the root cause of the current global nuclear war risk, driven by the pressure exerted on Russia by the United States and the West. On the other hand, China has consistently adhered to a policy of no first use of nuclear weapons, which means China does not pose a nuclear threat to the world. It is entirely unreasonable for the United States to redirect its focus toward China. Its true intention is only to determine China's nuclear capabilities if it cannot compel China to engage in nuclear disarmament. For China, given the low-level and shallow nature of this dialogue, it is highly unlikely that the United States will be able to uncover China's details, particularly regarding nuclear weapons equipment data. Second, it aims to stabilize China and prevent multiple geopolitical conflicts from erupting. The most sensitive and core issue between China and the United States is the Taiwan issue. The Taiwan issue holds the power of a veto in China-US relations. During the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the United States must refrain from provoking China on the Taiwan issue and must manage its military forces and vessels, avoiding attempts to provoke China. The prerequisite for the United States to prevent misjudgment by China is to stop supporting Taiwan independence and arms sales to Taiwan. The United States must return to adhering to the One China principle and the provisions of the 3 Sino-US joint communiques. Otherwise, if the United States continues to probe and challenge China's bottom line, constantly taking actions in support of a certain attitude, it will be difficult to reach agreements between China and the United States at the negotiation table. The United States must demonstrate sincerity for a genuine repair of the bilateral relationship to be possible. With multiple geopolitical conflicts erupting, the United States is already involved. Currently, by easing tensions with China, the United States has achieved temporary balance regarding the Taiwan issue. This prevents the powder keg in the Taiwan Strait from igniting and relieves pressure on the United States. For China, it is a good opportunity to exert pressure on the United States, restraining it from further fueling the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and bringing a glimmer of hope for peace in the region. In summary, the resumption of economic, financial, and military exchanges between China and the United States is a positive development. The current global situation requires the two major powers to sit down and have meaningful discussions, seeking common ground while reserving differences, and becoming mutually constraining forces to avoid misjudgments that could lead to conflicts. Both countries should make more efforts for world peace. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We genuinely appreciate your support.